begin. We are 30 minutes behind, so we will go straight to we talk about how you were related to basketball. We know we got a big percentage hope that if you know somebody that was in the room and I don't know, some now is doing something else, you can say to him that can come in again with the same link. So first of all, thank you for any inconvenience. I think we fixed it and we will have the opportunity to have a great session today. We will talk about the official basketball rules, how or what the rule says about intervals and timeouts. And after, we will come to analyze and give some tools to all the referees to maximize the efficiency during that timeout. So, first, we will introduce our guest. Our guest is Mr. Jose Carrion. He is a FIBA elite referee and FIBA instructor from Puerto Rico. He is a basketball referee since 1989 and get inside the professional or the BSN league in Puerto Rico in 1991. After he became a FIBA referee in 2001 and had a career until 2016. As a FIBA instructor, he began in 2019 in a camp that was made here in Panama for FIBA referees instructor program level 1. And on his refereeing career or FIBA career, he attended two FIBA World Cups, the first one in Japan in 2006 and the second one in Turkey in 2010. Also, he went to 3 Olympic Games, 2004 in Athens, 2008 in Beijing, and 2012 in London. And he's actually an NCAA Division I referee. So, Aníbal, if you want to say hello to the people who is coming and who is joining us again, please.
Well, I begin today. Good afternoon or good evening from wherever you are listening to us today. I begin today different from the way we started on Tuesday and with a quality that all the referees must have, and is accepting your mistakes and giving the correct apologies when they are necessary. The reason we are 35 minutes behind is because I didn't know that I put an external camera in my computer, and as a consequence, we have 2 audios. So the echo that everybody were listening, it was my fault. I apologize for that to everybody. Thanks, Omar and Julio, for the invitation. It is a great pleasure for me to be with you today, and I hope that at the end of this session, all of us learn something new for our career and basketball endeavors.
Omar?
Well, first of all, thank you for all the people that are joining us again, and thank you to Jose for joining us too in this 4th session in English. And well, I hope that this information that we will have today is really useful for all of you.
Okay, now we can move on to when we begin every session, we try to connect the topic with some of the points during the referee preparation that we discussed on the first session. So just for you to have an idea of what topic we are or where is the topic that we're talking about, we got which is the element inside the referee preparation that is more related to the communication during the intervals and the timeouts. You have the question in the poll area, and you can choose between ethic formation, physical capacity, technical preparation, philosophical activation, and psychological management. So you have some seconds to give your opinion about which element of these five is more related to the communication during the intervals and the timeouts. Okay, we're having here the question, I think, is the last three. Got 33%, 33%, 35. Talking about technical preparation, philosophical activation, and psychological management. I first will give my personal opinion, then our partners will give theirs. For me, is I got like two answers if I have to give two. First, the psychological activation and the way during that timeout or that interval we are getting prepared to the game we will have in the next minute. So it's how we are getting ready to be able to referee properly those actions. And the second, the psychological management, because now we are talking to our partners, we are listening to them, we can have some issues during the game, and this is the proper time to talk about them and to return to the game in a better mood. Mr. Jose?
I believe you are. You asked for the more. You did not ask for several answers, but related to that, in my opinion, it can relate to each one of them. And I will put the last that nobody marked down, like physical capacity. If we are doing a very fast-paced game, we want to use those timeouts sometimes. We need those timeouts. In terms of what we do during those timeouts, I believe technical preparation is the most related ones. Obviously include philosophical and psychological, because we will be talking about, but what we are gonna do during those timeouts is a technical preparation the same way that the teams will be doing.
Well, in my case, I can say technical preparation and philosophical management, because technical preparation is like the expertise that you have, but game by game. And this, and at the time you are having those scenarios again and again, so you are more prepared to react properly and predict what is going on in the game. And also the philosophical management, as Julio said, is really important for us. Manage properly the relation, the personal relation or interpersonal communication with your partners and all the people involved in the game, so we can stay connected and react and make that my partners feel that alert or alert sense to the situation that we gotta have. Okay, so moving forward to our fourth question is how many intervals are in a game without overtime? And the options that we have are 4 or 3. So let's see, you'll see the poll on the chat. Okay, so the people said, so I cannot see how many answers, but it means 100% on 4. So the rule on the playing time and the playing time of the game says the game shall consist of 4 quarters or 10 minutes each. There shall be an interval of play of 20 minutes before the game is scheduled to begin. Also, there shall be the intervals of play of 2 minutes between the first and the second quarter. This is going to be on the first half, and between the third and the fourth quarter in the second half, and before each overtime. Also, there shall be a halftime interval of play of 15 minutes. So this answers or question. It means the first intel is before the game, 20 minutes. One more on the between the first and the second. That's the second. The third is the 15 minutes interval between the second and third. And the fourth is the 2 minutes interval between the third and the fourth without an overtime. An interval play begins 20 minutes before the game is scheduled to begin, and when the game clock signal sounds for the end of the quarter or overtimes. An interval play ends at the beginning of the first quarter when the ball leaves the hand of the crew chief on the toss for the jump ball. And also at the beginning of all the other quarters and overtimes when the ball is at the disposal of the player taking the throw in. Moving forward, the fifth question is how many timeouts as a maximum can be granted to the coach during the last 2 minutes of the last quarter? And we have two options. It is 3 or 2. So how many timeouts a coach can request on the last 2 minutes? And I can see. Do we have the poll?
Yes, we're putting the poll for the people to answer. You can start thinking about your answer now. You can put it on the poll on the chat side.
So this is based on the FIBA rule. How many timeouts can the coach request on the last 2 minutes of the game? In the last 2 minutes of the last quarter? And the rule says each timeout shall last 1 minute. Also, a timeout might be granted during the timeout opportunity, and a timeout opportunity begins when the ball for both teams the ball becomes dead. The game clock is stopped, and the referee has ended his communication with the scorer table. Also, for both teams, the ball becomes dead following a successful last free throw. And for the non-scoring team, a field goal is scored. A timeout opportunity ends when the ball is at the disposal of the player for a throw-in or for a first free throw. Each team may be granted 2 timeouts during the first half, 3 timeouts during the second half, with a maximum of 2 of these timeouts when the game clock shows 2 minutes or less in the fourth quarter. And this answers our question. 1 timeout during each overtime, and unused timeout might not be carried over to the next half or overtime. We lost? No.
Okay, now we will talk about positions during the timeout. We got some guidelines by the mechanics on which we need to be stand during the timeouts just to as a protocol, and everybody can do the same thing. So we are requested to put ourselves on our throw-in, on our free throw lines or in the mid-court. The position will depend on where the ball will be throwing after. So we will go to the closest place of these 3 in which the ball will be put it after the timeout. When the timeout count comes to 20, then we need to move towards the benches to have them inside the court on time. As you see, if it's 60 seconds to timeout and we need to go to the benches around 40 seconds, we have only 40 seconds to talk really during that timeout. So we will see now or during this session how important it is to maximize that time. On the 3-person mechanics, the same spots. Now we got 3 referees. One is facing the table. Sometimes it's more it's better that the crew chief is the one who faces the table to have any communication with the commissioner or with any other table official. And also when the referees or when the timeout is about 20 seconds before, then we move toward the benches to have the teams inside the court on time. Okay.
Okay, so our sixth question is, what topic will you discuss with your teammates during the first time out of the first quarter? And you got three options. The first option A, the analysis of the intensity of the game based on the expectations talked during the pre-game meeting. Option B, the level of the physical contact allowed to maintain the consistency through the game. Option C, the reactions of the players and coaches during our first calls for their management in order to maintain the control of the game. So you'll see the options on the chat as always. And
Remember that this is not right or wrong question. It is for you to have your first idea or your first impression about what to talk during that first time out, and then we will discuss from now on with our guest about what tools can he give us to manage that time.
okay, so we got 66% on the reaction of the players and coaches during our first calls for the management in order to maintain the control of the game. So as Julio said, there is not a wrong answer. Basically, it depends. It depends on momentum in the game and how the game is being developed. Development. Um, so this question is for Jose, and so we want to hear from you. What are the possible, topics that we can discuss with the referee team during the first timeout of the first quarter? Or if we don't have any timeout during the first quarter, it will be until the first interval of the game between the first and the second. But what is for you the most important topic to talk about during those times?
Like you said, Omar, what we are going to talk today is my opinion. So I'm going to put the disclaimer. The expression saying right here is not necessary what we have to do. But after that disclaimer, I have to say this. We will not have two equal games. We will not have two quarters the same. We will not have two halves the same. And I like to answer these questions with examples. Okay, you two are two young officials. Okay, who the person in charge of FIBA trust, and he decided that you were going to work at the World Cup in China. It was your first World Cup. You have a lot of experience. You were saw by FIBA. That's the reason they invited you. Now you are in front of 5, 10, 15,000 people. It is your first game, and you are appointed to X game, and your crew chief is Jose Carrion. Well, as a crew chief, I will try to make you as comfortable as possible in our pregame, okay? But I cannot feel what you're feeling, okay? Each one of us will feel something different. So I will turn the question to both of you, because I want to know if you remember, and probably you will never forget, how you felt when you did your first game in China. And I will begin with Julio. Julio, how did you feel when you did your first game in China?
As you say, those first seconds are like a lot of anxiety, a lot of not nervous completely, but want to make that first decision, want to make that good first decision. So I can now think, or I can now realize that I belong to the scenario, that I can call properly what they are playing, because now they are another kind of players, they are on another level, and I just want to fix or feel that I fixed that that game. So the first seconds, running back and forth, waiting something to happen, and when that timeout comes, then try to talk with the crew chief, with your partner, and be more relaxed. And now stay calm and work as we did all the games before, because that's why the work we did before is why we were there. So trying to have that period the shortest we can, and then get inside the game.
Omar?
It's this my first game was those type of games where you are really nervous or feeling some anxiety, but those type of games where you get tired so fast because you are overthinking about all your environment, because you want to have the best evaluations, you want to have the perfect first call of the game, and this is kind of an adaptation process from being working different type of level until a World Cup where of course there are the best players of the world, and the intensity is so high, and you are finding, in my case I was finding that this adaptation to that level, so I feel so comfortable from that point, and I think that arrives until the second quarter maybe, where I was feeling like, okay, now I'm feeling good. But my first quarter was like, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling nervous, and every single call that I had was like 50-50 for me. Am I right? Am I wrong? Because I didn't know, because it was my first World Cup scenario, and I think it's like beating that nervous, like beating that confidence point to reach that level where you can be you at that point. And I think that's the most important, the feeling that I had.
One more question before I answer the question. Had you do a game where you do not have butterflies at the beginning of the game?
For me, I think, okay, sometimes it depends on the scenario, or if I dream to be there. It not only need to be the World Cup, any other competition here in our country, any other local competition that you dream to be there. And when you are there, beginning the game, during that first interval, and the ball is tossed, first this for sure I have emotion, and I think I will have until my last game. I think that something that does not disappear or anything will remove it.
Yeah, in
Omar?
my case was every game. Probably my first, mainly on my first game, but every time that I was, making to the next level, I was in the quarterfinals, and I was, oh my God, I'm feeling like we are before the game, just before the game. When I make it to the semifinals, it was worse because it was more important that game. So this gotta be always.
I cannot talk in absolutes, uh, always or never, but my experience is that most of the referees, when they face a game, they feel butterflies before the game, because we go to a new environment, regardless of the level of basketball that we will do.
Yeah.
So answering the question that Julio asked me, I probably will approach both of you, assuming that the three of us are working together, is how do you feel? Okay? Because I was a rookie at some point in my career. And if you will say, well, I miss this and I miss that, it has to come from you. I will not put more pressure on the referee, even though I think he did something wrong. Okay, so the way I will address those first 40 seconds in the first quarter, usually that happen, we don't have to go to the interval. If we have to go to the interval, then we have more to talk. But in those 40 seconds, how do you feel? If you bring a play that you think you did wrong, I will say to you, put it in your pocket, put it in your mind, and we talk about that later at halftime or after the game, because what happened already happened. We can do nothing about it. I need your full concentration in what's gonna happen after the timeout. That is what is important to me. And one comment that probably additionally I will say to you is, I don't know how much time left we have on this game, let's say 35 minutes. And I will say to you, I don't know if you will last the next 35 minutes, but at least if you die right now, you can say you did a game in the World Cup. Okay?
Okay, thank you. We now will move to our second topic. We first talked about that first timeout. What can we talk during that first timeout? And now we move to another scenario or another timeout in which we ask this question for our guest. What tools can you offer a referee to communicate with a teammate during a short period of time that we have in a timeout? We have two different scenarios. The first one is that your teammate or the person is calling some marginal context as fouls inside and outside his area of responsibility. And the second scenario is that your teammate is not calling obvious plays on his primary, and those plays needs to be called by another referee. How can you approach that person in these two scenarios in 40 seconds that we have in that timeout, or probably an interval in the future?
It is my opinion. It is my opinion that is easy when we have a referee who, for whatever reason, do not blow the whistle, and we can help him or her with our whistle. Different from when we put air in the whistle in marginal context. Our job is to determine what is illegal or what is marginal, okay? So we will start, or we should start that conversation in our pregame. Now, one thing is that we talk, and the other thing is what you execute. And I'm going to give you an example. In my career, I had the opportunity to work in a crew in this particular game with two guys who their experience were completely different. One of them, his experience was bigger than mine. The other one, it was his first big game. So you can imagine the difference in experience, okay? And I was the crew chief, okay? Every single timeout, when that young guy, we have a timeout, he came to me and immediately he said, how I am doing. My response was always the same, at least on the first half. You are doing great. So now at least the first quarter, we begin the second quarter, and he was consistent with us the way we were calling the game. Second quarter began, and the first two whistles were from the most experienced person in front of his face, and we lost him for the second quarter. We lost him. On the first time out on the second quarter, he immediately ran to me and he said, what did I do wrong? And I have to say to him, you did nothing wrong. Why? Because the way he was judging the contact, it was his way to do it. Now, the other guy did not understood like that. So when we went to the locker room at halftime, we need to talk about it. I have to talk as a crew chief about it. And I said, guys, in general, first you start in general because you are reffing a game. You are not evaluating your partners, okay? But everybody is looking how consistent we are, and we must be consistent. And I said, gentlemen, to be honest with you, we are calling two different games. Either we are going to blow the whistle on every contact, or we will allow the referee closest to the play to digest the play and the basketball game. Okay, I tried to be as polite as I could, and I know was gonna be some reactions, and they were reactions. I am in the philosophy that whatever we talk in the locker room, stay in the locker room, no matter what. No matter what. Whatever we talk in the locker room, stay in the locker room. Okay? So we were able to bring that guy back. And I said, he trusted me. But at the end of the day, it's not I, it is we. We brought him back, and we were able to have him during the whole game, and it was successful. Based on the statements that you just put up, if you go to call out of your primary, okay, it has to be, number one, an obvious play. It has to be a play that you are 100% sure. And number three, that you deem that your partner do not have an open angle to the play. If those three prerequisites are not in compliance, do not blow. Trust your partner. Okay? Because what happens is, if we go out of our primary and we are wrong, then we will put pressure in ourselves, and we will put pressure on our partners. Why? Because we are human beings. Okay, like you said before, I feel you have the confidence, but if and then you were nervous at the beginning of the game because it was a new environment. So if I am in front of a play with an open angle and somebody blow in my face, I said two things happen: either he doesn't trust me, or he thinks I cannot referee, and that's the worst thing that can happen on a crew chemistry. Okay.
Sometimes we, as you say, even though we don't know our partner, maybe that in the local or something like that, but sometimes we don't have that confidence to talk, and we don't know how to talk during 40 seconds. And we can have a good intention, but what we say in that short period of time, then we split and every referee goes to their position. There's something start to going through their mind. So the first thing, and I say because I had a case or experience during this year, is that when we have that big calls outside primary, and then we got a timeout, and we say, how are we? And we say, good, good, good. And then we come back, we are never good. And as you say, the referee that received the call, now he will try to look other things and think, I didn't call that. Now I will call more to avoid other partner coming to my primary. So it's always important during timeout, ask, what did you see, and not why didn't you call? Because it's not the thing about the call, it's about the play. And if the person sees something different, then you can understand why he didn't blow the whistle. And if it was obvious, as you say, he will be thankful for you to help in favor of the game. It's nothing personal. It's always we try to be as professionals as we can. So try or practice your words. What would I say in a timeout if I got called very close to me? And if I'm the referee who is calling, and if I am the third referee who is not involved and they don't want to talk, how can I introduce the topic to have that chemistry good during the rest of the period until we can meet again? Omar?
Well, I think there's 2 points where we can be smart and 2 points where we can learn. And especially on calling on my secondary area, especially that point, and how to manage that interaction on the timeout or in the interval game or halftime, to talk about the possible issue that we have on the game. So we need to be smart with those secondary whistles, because we cannot have those every time. So of course, so we need to be enough smarts to initiate that conversation, but with the purpose of improving, not with the purpose of just like puntualize the mistake. It should be a, a improvement purpose. So that's the 2 points where you need to be really smart to manage those situations and take the responsibility of the leadership of the game, because those points are more than technical points or leadership points, where you need to have that courage to motivate your partner to react, to participate on the game. And I think those points are really important.
To move next.
Okay, so the next question for you guys is, what aspect will you discuss with your teammates during the halftime interval? And the three options that we have is option A, focus on the first minutes of the third quarter, do the possible changes in the intensity of the game. Option B, remember the players who had the at unsports fouls and technical fouls during the first half. And the option C, start the third quarter as a new game, forgetting the mistakes made in the first half. You'll see the same the questions. You will see the question in the chat. And just to remember that the answer of this question, it is not something that is going to be the option A always. It could be changed, depends the type of game, but you can answer depends your thinking. And we had 40%, 41% on option C, started the third quarter as a new game, forgetting the mistakes made on the first half. It is 40% in the option A too. Focus on the first minutes of the third quarter, do the possible change in the intensity of the game. So as I said before, there is no correct answer. And this question is going to be for Jose. And the question is, what aspects we need to analyze during the halftime interval? Depends if the game is going in a good way or not. So basically, we had that good outcome at the end of the second quarter. So what we need to talk about my partners, or what I need to talk about if the game is not in a good way?
Well, both of them are dangerous in their particular situation. If we had a very, in our opinion, a good first half, we cannot go to the locker room and left the locker room without talking of what we did, because then we will have overconfidence. We cannot forget that the timeouts and the intervals of plays are opportunities for the team to adjust, and we must adjust. The same way that the game began in a particular way, the second half, the third quarter, the first 2 or 3 minutes of the third quarter are extremely important. What happened on those 2 or 3 timeouts, 2 or 3 minutes beginning the third quarter? Sometimes we have substitutes, okay? And substitutes can be help to our games or could be disruptors, okay? Especially when they come directly from the bench and they have not participated. So we need to adjust them to our whistle. The same we allowed to the starters is the same way we are going to ref to them. Be careful. Be careful. If a player who comes to the bench, who is a substitute, not because Jose wanted or Julio wanted or Omar wanted, is the coach, okay? Why you are a substitute? Because in general situations, the coach believes that these 5 are my best 5 players. So these 7 remaining players, their behavior must be exceptional. You know why? Because if you don't do it and you will put things into my game that I did not allow the regular players, I will guarantee you that you will return to the bench with 2 or 3 fouls in less than 2 minutes. Simple like that. Okay? That's one thing that I will mention to everybody, and that is called game management. Okay? If we did something wrong, okay, what we did wrong, we cannot do nothing about it, but we need to be conscious on what happened. And I'm going to give you an example. Sometimes we as referees tend to react or overreact, okay? And sometimes we get to the locker room or on the next timeout and we said, well, I call it technical foul, and I believe if I had walked away, I did not call that technical foul. But you know what? The technical foul was called, and if for any reason you call a second one on that player, he's ejected. The same with an unsportsmanlike foul. So we cannot forget what happened on the first half. At all times, especially with the FIBA rules, we must know what player we penalize with a technical foul and unsportsmanlike foul. And I put the example if we did it wrong, because we, in our self-evaluation, understood that. But even though if you did it right, we must remember that, okay? Because, and I'm gonna put you an example. Let's say that Julio is the best player of Team A, and probably he is. I never play basketball, so that doesn't apply to me. So Julio has a technical foul because I call it. He called my mom, so I penalize him with a technical foul. Okay, he deserved the first technical foul. So now the coach, and he's he has some temper. The opposite coach knows that, because in today's basketball era, they scout the same way we do. That's the new philosophy right now. We cannot go to a game without zero feedback. That is not possible today. So I know that Julio has his temper. So you know what? He had a technical foul. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bring a sub, and I will allow him to trash talk with Julio. Okay, so now if that happened, Omar is that player, and I know Omar was that player. Okay, so he is on the court right now. So Omar and Julio get in a situation, in a confrontation, and I was not smart enough to get involved between them. Omar is the 12th player on that team, okay, and he cursed Julio first, and Julio cursed him back. Action, reaction. Okay? So now I say, you know what? I'm going to stop this. This is a double technical foul. Okay? Perfect. It's wonderful. You know what the problem is? That Julio already had a technical foul, and Julio is ejected now. What the other coach will do, he will sub Omar. Omar did the dirty work, and Julio is out of the game. And it's only an example, okay? It's an example. But what I want to do with the question itself is that we need to be conscious that first half is to recall what we did. If we had a bad first half, in our opinion, we need to go out with a tight whistle to begin the third quarter. And if we did it right, we must keep the same tempo beginning the third quarter, so we have a successful. What could not happen to us is that the game change. Let's say we are reffing this game, okay, and then the third quarter goes this way, and we keep our whistles right here. No, we must be either at the level or above. We cannot catch up. Okay.
From my point, I agree totally with what you said. And talking about that last example, sometimes when the game is tight at the half, is short the score, they will come back like no big changes, and they just will keep, and we don't have any big issue during those first minutes of the third quarter. But when the game has some difference, more than 10, 15 points, and they go to the locker room to talk about it, and to the team that is losing, how they will try or push to come back, and they begin with 100 intensity, and we begin that third quarter soft, then big problems happens. And I have seen them in my games also, in which we come from the halftime, okay, let's continue, and that team that is losing by 15 is making a run, and they a run of 7-0, and I call a marginal contact against them, and then the reaction I am not expecting, because I am not realizing how intense they are playing. So that's how we need to be. As you say, if the game goes in a different level, we need to go at the moment and don't be, hey, why this happened? Why that guy react like that if they are losing by 7, but they have just got 8, and we stop that run with a marginal call. So be ready after the timeout, principally on those games that will be completely a change after that halftime.
Right now that both of you are working at the high level, let me ask you this: have you have the experience that something weird happened in your game, and they ask you to go back on previous plays before the situation, and they look for a possible reason for the situation itself?
Yes, we
that's the way.
Always.
That's the way basketball is right now. Okay, when something weird happen, they will find a reason. An unsportsmanlike foul happened because of a hard foul at the 6-minute mark, and they will rewind the tape to the 8-minute mark with an elbow that went on call, or even at the 9-minute mark, and they will tie both situations, even though we're 2 or 3 minutes apart.
Yeah, that's something that I agree, because as you said, the basketball change, and this new era of game, the reaction of the players are like this. And also something that I can add to the analysis is that don't take the halftime as a break, because even on the halftime we're still working, so we still having some work to do on the halftime, because we are planning how to react to the third and the fourth, especially on the first 5 minutes of the third. So sometimes we made the mistake to take the halftime as a break, and taking the phone to check some message or something, and we have that so we over relax ourselves. So when we came back to the third quarter, so we are lost on the game, and sometimes the game, sometimes the game surprises us, and then this is when we have those inconsistency, and then we have that couple of calls that take the game to the bad way. So just take with the halftime with some responsibility. So when you came back in the third, so you are ready.
Okay, we have talked about 3 topics so far. First time out of the game, then how can we approach a partner in a difficult moment during a timeout during the game, and what can be talked during the interval. So I know that there is a quote that says that we are as good referees as our last call, not the first call. So now it all resumes to those last seconds of a game principle if the game is very close. So we will share another poll for you to answer. What point of emphasis will you as a referee analyze with your teammates during a timeout in the last seconds of a close game? So the first option is score and team fouls to anticipate possible offensive and defensive actions. combined with preventative officiating. The second option is remember the standing special scenarios for action that can lead to movement on the point average. And the third one is meeting point to leave the court at the end of the game. So you can share your opinion. Remember, we have no wrong, right answer. It's only what is the first thing that comes to your mind to talk during that timeout in that last seconds of a close game. So we're having here the answer. I think most of the people is going with the first option, which is score and team fouls to anticipate possible offensive and defensive actions. Another 16%, they think that remember the standings, and the last 14% about meeting point to leave the court. So I think we have some Puerto Rican referees here answering this poll about the meeting point after the game. So now the question will be to our guest. And before going to some clips, we would like to ask you to tell us about those points of emphasis that you think that need to be considered by the officiating team during a timeout in those last seconds of a close game.
I think I agree with most of the people when they said the score and team fouls to anticipate possible offensive and defensive actions, especially right now with the FIBA rules. We must have a defensive team mentality. Okay, what that means? It means that because we do not know what the offensive coach will do, we must prepare to all possible scenarios. Okay, we can assume that the offensive coach will decide to put the ball back, but he decided to do it at the throwing end, and then we must change. So we have 40 seconds that probably our conversation began at the pregame, sometimes knowing the coaches, knowing the players, knowing the teams, sometimes at halftime. If the game is close, we must anticipate all those situations where the ball is gonna be put in play. If the ball is put in play by the team who's winning, by the team who's losing. If they're gonna foul, if they are not gonna foul. One thing that is very important, very, very important. And when something goes wrong, Murphy's Law happens. When thing goes wrong, everything goes wrong. Okay, and you can have the best game, and in the last play, everything will be destroyed. That sometimes happens. That's the way basketball is. So one thing that it is my opinion, we must be aware during the whole game, but especially in a close game, is clocks. We must be sure that in a throwing, the clock starts on time. If you as a referee are 100% sure that the clock did not start on time, my recommendation to you is that you wait until one team got control of the ball on the court before blowing your whistle. And I'm going to give you an example related with this. Let's say that team A inbounds the ball. The ball is deflected. Okay. Now the clock should start, but it was a timing error. The clock did not start. Now the ball is loose. Okay. And you blow your whistle with the ball loose. It is team control, but the ball is loose. And now the defensive team is going to gain control of the ball, but you already blew the whistle. What you must do, you must to apply the rule. And what the rule says, the team in control at that time will retain the ball. But the ball is loose or was loose, and the other team was going to gain control. You apply the rule, unfortunately, incorrectly. So on those situations, my recommendation is that you wait. But the most important point is that all of us, the three of us, are aware on the clocks. Also, the ball was inbounded correctly. The clock start on time. We have one play to end the game. It is in a particular scenario, everybody's decision. Okay, an obvious play cannot be missed. Okay, an obvious play cannot be missed. Now we have the person responsible for the last second shot. But if that person who's the guy who's the opposite, the play is in front of him, then the guy who's opposite will be responsible for the clock. Okay, and all these things we need to review in those 40 seconds. And we did not mention it, and the percentage was low in terms of leaving the court, but we must have a plan in case that game ended in a difficult situation. What we are gonna do? Are we going to stay at midcourt? Are we going immediately to the locker room? Is the police is going to come to us? Do we need to walk to a certain area? All those things must be talked.
I will talk. You explain great about the score, team fouls, and the last point. I will just talk a few about the second points because sometimes, as you say, we come to a game and we don't know how is the atmosphere around that game. Sometimes we got standing situations. If the team lose by 4 points, they still in. And then we got that scenario because sometimes when it's that, then the game is finishing and they losing by 4. So there's always some pressure for us to know what is happening because sometimes that team that is losing by 4, they don't want to win that game. So if they come to press and there's a marginal contact and we think that they want to stop the clock and we blow something that we have not been blowing during the whole game, then we can have a big trouble. And it's always important you to know all those scenarios just to be sure that you understand what is happening, and when it happens, you can react properly. Omar?
Well, basically talk about everything, but something that I can add now is every time we blow the whistle, we must know the status of the ball. So, because if we know that information before blowing my whistle, I know exactly how to resume the game. If I don't know the status of the ball, so I will ask and probably will find the wrong answers. This is the only thing that I can add because basically you talk about everything, but sometimes we had a situation as Jose said before. So we have a turnover and then we have the whistle, or sometimes we have the 24 seconds horn and then we have a turnover, or we have a turnover and then we have the 24 seconds light or sound, and then we have that whistle that it is something that creates us a problem in that moment. So just make sure the status of the ball so we know exactly if it is necessary to blow it or not.
Okay, now we will share some clips and I will explain you how it will work. We will watch game situation before the timeout. That's the first clip we will watch. When you watch that clip, please check what is about time, about score, about team fouls, and which team is going to make the throw in. When they make the timeout, then you will have to answer the question to know what would you talk with your teammates during this timeout. So you will watch the clip before the timeout. You will watch the options. What will you talk during that timeout with your colleagues? And then we will watch what will happen after the timeout. So we will share the first clip, and while the clip is there, you will have the poll in your right side or below if it is a phone for you to give your opinion about what will you talk with your teammates during that timeout. We got 90. Okay, I think we got an image here, but 90, 92. The team entitled for the ball is the red team who is losing by 2. The white team has 3 falls to give, and we got 9 seconds on the game clock. So you can answer the poll. Then we will have our guest opinion, and then we will share what happens after that timeout. Okay, I think 58% is very tight, but 58% says that now 66. Front court throw in, offensive team will attack fast for 2 or 3 points. The defense will make a personal foul during the first attack of the offense. They have to focus on if that foul occurs on the act of shooting or not, and they will finish the timeout deciding which referee will be responsible for the shot and which referee will be responsible for the clock. So, Jose, what do you think? What can you add?
I am a terrible coach, but I believe I will put the ball in the front court. As a defensive team, I will not necessarily foul on the first movement. I will probably allow them to run the clock 3-4 seconds and then foul. So they have probably 1 shot at the end. And as a referee, talking as a referee right now, one thing that we need to be aware is if for any reason that foul, that remaining foul, do not come on time. And when I said do not come on time, it means coming late, that the offensive team is already in the act of shooting, is an act of shooting foul. Sometimes we get stuck and we said, or we are close in our mind, they're gonna give a foul, and the foul should be, well, must be before the act of shooting. But for whatever reason, they did it when the offensive player is in the act of shooting. It's their fault. Obvious plays must be called the way they happen. Okay. And the other points I mentioned it before: check clocks, be aware of the screens, all those situations.
Now we will share the second part of what happened after the timeout. Okay, from my point of view, I want to talk quickly about one topic in which now we are having a lot of protocols for specific situations. And the protocol has the idea of having a good outcome in a short period of time, mainly when we communicate during special situations. So we as referee can make our own protocols for timeout. We know we have 40 seconds and we want to prioritize and maximize that use to have a good outcome after the timeout. And we can practice this before we talk about everything. In this special case, that was the last timeout of the offense. So we talk, there comes the foul, but then we will not meet again. So we need to talk about what will happen after that second throwing. So I agree with what everything you say. And remember, we anticipate actions to be ready for when they happen. We are not anticipating the call. So we are not blowing before the action happens. We know what could happen, and then when it happens, we are ready to take the decision. Or the Mike, I think.
Something that we need to understand is that even if the team is gonna make a foul or not, so we cannot judge them, or as Jose says, so we need to be ready for every scenario that we could have, but we need to be ready to judge the play as a basketball play. Just be ready if we have that foul, just call it, or be ready just to have the right decision for the end of the game. Here, the team has 2 points. They are 2 points down on the score, so we got 9.9. Of course, we'll have a good defense, but we cannot predict what's gonna be the offensive tactic. So we can't be aware of any type of contact that where we can have a whistle for, but just be ready and just be alert for all the situations. And this is the best timing of the game, because so we all need to be connected. But basically we got like 40 seconds, just 40 seconds for plan all these that we are talking about now. So the last question for the last video, well, for the video is on the video that we have now. Just the question is, in the video, what will you talk with your teammates during the timeout? We got 2 options. The ball is going to be on the front court throwing. Offensive will try a 3-point shot. Defense will not make a personal foul. Decide the referee responsible for of the shot and the clock. Or the ball in the front court throwing. Offensive will try a 3-point shot. Defense will make a personal foul before the shot. And this take us to the focus on the act of shooting or not, and decide the referee responsible of the shot and the clock. So let's play it.
Was not the time to take the 3. That's like going for the win. But now it's going to be interesting. I think Cuba has a timeout. 2 seconds to go at the very most. With O'Neal missing that free throw, it's going to be at the most a 3-point game, which it is. Now we've got the timeout. 2.6 seconds left to go. 3-point. Cuba's going to be drawing up a play to get a 3-pointer.
So we have Cuba 3-point down on the score. It has the ball 2.6 seconds, I think, on the front. Well, they have the option to put the ball in back or front court. So we got 75%, well, 60-40, 60 on the ball in the front court throwing. Offensive will try a 3-point shot. Defense will make a personal foul before the shot. So if that's the case, we need to be ready at the time we call it to decide that's an act of shooting or not. Because for the intention, as your answer, it's gonna be a 3-point shot, right?
Jose, what can you talk during the timeout before we watch the resume of the play?
It is an interesting play because the basketball IQ gets into answering this question. And when I said basketball IQ, meaning the environment that you are working at. If this play happened in a FIBA game, my experience is that the defensive team will foul, because if they made 2, I will still be up by 1. Okay, that's in FIBA games. My experience in the NCAA men's is that the defensive team will defend the whole possession. Okay, obviously if they do not have fouls, but even if they have fouls, they usually tend to defend. So it will depend on where you're working at. That's number 1. Number 2, like Omar said, if they foul, call the foul immediately. Okay, sometimes, and I don't want to use the term tactical fouls, because that FIBA is trying to avoid that, and it's a very fine line between tactical and sportsmanlike. But if a team fouls, call it. Simple. The tape will defend you. Okay. If you decide not to call a foul that happened, and the defensive team want to stop the clock, they will foul, but they will foul harder. They will force you to make the call, and then right now you have a judgment between a personal foul and unsportsmanlike foul. That's number 2. Number 3, like I said before, if you decide to call a foul, make sure that you call it immediately, and do not allow the foul to happen when the offensive player is already in the act of shooting, because then you put yourself in trouble. Okay, and sometimes that happened to us too. We put ourselves in trouble because it's difficult to defend that the play happened before, because everybody will see when you blew your whistle, and when you blew your whistle, probably the offensive player was already in the act of shooting. Okay.
Let's watch.
But having more than one weapon to be able to do it is a bonus.
Absolutely. There it is. Interesting. She's going to have 2 shots.
It was on the floor, so the Cubans were thinking it was on the shot, which would have given her 3 shots.
And it's the right call.
Yeah, it is.
It's the right call. She grabbed her as she was coming off the screen on the baseline, so 2 shots is it. So what's going to have to happen, make the first, miss the second. What's going to have to happen?
I think we have a question here, and I will ask Jose, because I think it fits this video. And the question says, in the last second of the game, if the game needed, can we break the mechanics a little to take a better angle to call a play?
Radical answer. Not only in the last play of the game, at any point of the game, we can break the mechanics to do what is right for the game. But if you decide to do it, when I said you, the crew, decide to do it, you must be able to defend your decision. What you cannot do is break the mechanic because I want to break the mechanics. Because if you miss a play because you broke the mechanic, you are not defended. You are not defendable. You put yourself in a not defendable position. An example for that, and I like to use a terminology that I learned from Mark Wonderlich, the vice president, one of the vice president in the NBA. Proximity doesn't mean open angle to a play. Okay, you can be very close to a play and you do not have an angle to the play. And for one second, let's gonna think I am in rectangle 4 and I have 2 post players and the post player is dribbling in front of me. I am closer to him, less than 4 feet. And that player decides to curve away from me. I'm still the closest referee to the play, but I have zero angle to the play. So I have to trust my trail or my center to blow the whistle if in need. Okay? Whoever has an open angle to the play is the person responsible to blow the whistle. That's the question to Mr. Jurado Castillo.
Okay, now we will move to our last video. In the first two, we got the team losing was making the throw-in. Now we will have the team winning making the throw-in. So after you watch the clip, you can decide in the poll what will you talk about during the timeout. If there will be backcourt or front court throw-in, the offensive will consume the time, and what will do the defense? If will they foul immediately, or if they will try to steal the ball during the first seconds of the game. So let's watch the clip.
Done that. They stop Greece from getting a three here.
It's going to have to be quick.
Slukas. He's done really well there, Kostas Slukas.
Slukas had to be very careful there. He grabbed the ball, and that could have been a delay, a game technical against him in such a critical period of time. That's what Doncic has been asking the referees for. But it's a great spin move that puts Prepelic on his heels and brings the game back down to 3 points.
Another timeout, this one called by Slovenia.
Yeah, this will advance the ball as well. This is a sense.
So we have 3-point difference, 16 seconds, and the team winning by 3 is having the timeout. So you can now answer in the poll the question, what would you talk with your teammates during that timeout? It's going 50-50, still going. It's going more for the bottom. It's very tight, it's moving still. But I think it's 50-50 because they are with the backcourt and the front court. So they are not very sure where will be resumed, but they stay with the second option. Front court throw in, offensive will consume the time. Defense will try to steal the ball during the first seconds, and they will make a personal foul if they could not. And we should make preventive officiating to avoid any unnecessary UF. So, Jose, what can you feedback us with during this time?
I agree. I believe both of the 3 of us and probably the 24 people remaining on the phone call will agree that it will be a defensive foul. Okay, that's the easy part. The difficult is where they're gonna put the ball in play. If it's Jose Carrion, I will put the ball in the backcourt. Okay, why? Because I will have the remaining time on the game. Okay, if I put the ball in the front court with 16 seconds, and they foul me immediately, then they will have time for the last play of the game. If they have a timeout, they can advance the ball. So our different philosophies, we must be aware, like I said before, a defensive foul will come, backcourt or frontcourt. That's the main difference there. We must call the first foul. And an advice that I give everybody, especially in this technological area, okay, is that the defensive player or team, if they are behind and they are trying to foul, they used to do this movement and they throw the hand. Okay, do not blow because of the action of the throwing of the hand, but because the contact occurred. And what I mean for that is, if you decide to blow the whistle with the movement and no contact happen, you will get yourself in trouble. Okay, but at the same time, if it happens, call it. That's what they wanted. Okay,
let's watch the remaining, what happens after the timeout.
Slovenia have got. Doncic inbounds. There's the foul. We knew that was coming. Showing the ball didn't go to the hands of Paul and Dragic.
No, interesting. They tried to, but they did deny possession on it. They're not going to be too upset with it going into the hands of Prep.
You see how some players get us in trouble? He was fouled, no doubt about it. Why the flop? Why the flop? Why to embellish the contact?
Okay.
I don't like this.
We agree. We got a few seconds of defense, and then they come with a foul, and we are ready to call that foul. So I think that's a very summary of all of these three clips. Just anticipate what will happen, and then be ready for when it happens. So you can make your questions on the shot before finishing. I will share with you. Omar, you want something?
Yeah, I want to say something that has, for me, is something similar in the last two situations. The last one was the foul on the front court when he's like faking a little bit, but that's a foul. And the previous one was the shot and the foul. It was the question was the foul was on the shooting or not. And something similar in those two videos is that we need to understand that the timing of the whistle is really, really important. Why? Because it is more defendable if we have the whistle right in the moment and we can say that's a non-shooting foul and the whistle is right on the ground. Or we have the foul right here preventing any reaction of the offensive player after the push. So it is something important that we need to know, that we need to react quickly to those situations so we can defend those calls or those whistles. Because if we blow it, the ball's in the air, we can say, hey, that's on the floor, or we can prevent any reaction of the in the last example that we have. What happens if we don't blow exactly on the moment, and then the offensive player standing up to create a conflict or something? So just prevent those situations with your timing of the whistle.
I will share the screen just to invite you for our next session next Thursday, July 9. We will be talking about referee the defense as a key to keep the consistency. So the time will be the same, 11 Pacific time, 13 USA Central time, and 14 USA Eastern time. So if you have any question, you can make through the chat. We will have some closing statements. We'll begin. Is just first, sorry for the inconvenience. So I think most of you kept with us. The meeting was basically for this, for you to give some tools to be ready before going to the game on what can you talk in those 40 seconds during the timeouts, depending on the situation you have in front. And this is all done to be ready for the next play. So I think this is very important in our pursuit to keep the excellence in our officiating. And it's not written on the rule book, or it's not a case of interpretation. It's something you can add to your officiating to improve it. So, Omar?
Well, just to say that this session today was more oriented to the refereeing order. The previous ones that we have were more englobing all the facts that we need to get better or improve to come in this point where we can apply all the techniques that we have for the refereeing. But today's session were more, as I said before, oriented to the awareness and how to react properly to the situations that we have. So I want to say thank you for all the people that are join us week by week, and of course Jose for having the time to participate these two sessions, the Spanish and this one, and 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 I think this is a really good session for all the people to learn and apply new things to the referee.
We have a question here for Jose. Would you explain a little bit more about what you mean with marginal calls? Then I have an idea, but I will be better to have your explanation.
If you call, if you blow your whistle on every contact that happens on the court, the game will last 3 hours and you need a personal security to score you after every game. The referees must judge when a contact is marginal or illegal. Marginal means, let's go with the easy part, with the illegal. Illegal means that an advantage was taken. I don't want to use the term advantage against disadvantage, but the defensive player or the offensive player did something wrong, okay, to get to a position, okay, or to do what he wanted, okay. Marginal contact is incidental contact that happened and it doesn't have a consequence. That's the difference between marginal and illegal, okay. And I probably will put it on an example because I like to talk with examples so people can rely. Team A grabs the ball, okay, in a rebound, okay, and then because we are refereeing men or young kids, but they have contact because both of them were trying to get the ball. So now we have a slight contact right here, but the offensive player who grabs the ball was able to land and he started his dribble. That contact, it happens, is marginal. But now the same situation happened when the contact happened here or happened on the hip, and as a consequence, the player who grabs the ball land and lose the ball. That's a consequence. That's not a marginal contact. That's an illegal contact.
Okay, perfect. If you have any other question, you can make through the chat. The message or the purpose of these sessions, we are not making English sessions because of the amount of people, because sometimes we see, and I know Jose also saw during his career, the difficulty for Latin American referees to make that last step because of the English barrier. And sometimes we got very good referees and the English is like some barrier that is not easy to overcome when you are just to get until that step. So we are creating this content just to have the Spanish and the English version. And as we share after, it will be helpful for those referees who will try to make the FIBA license. They can prepare since now how to interact in English about some terms. We are not, Aníbal is living in the US, but Omar and I, our first language is not English. And I think you can understand us because we are talking very slow. And this is the idea of this session. Just try to help all our Spanish-speaking colleagues to have this information in English and try to interact with the language before going to the FIBA scenario. I think we are finishing. Last, thank you, Jose, for your disposal to participate with us on the Spanish and this one. And now you are free to make your last, to give your last words to the people.
Well, how do you feel, both of you, that is your English from 1 to 10?
For me, 6.
Hurry up because we are finishing.
7.
How?
able to
Maybe
communicate.
a 7, maybe a 7. I don't know.
Okay. I have been living in the state for 19 years. Is the first dialogue or the first presentation that I do in English. And my first comment to both of you is thanks for the opportunity to do what I love, that I have passion about in English. You not only are doing what you love to do in your language, but you are not afraid to do the same thing in English. One thing that Latin American referees or Spanish referees needs to do if they want to move to the next level is be able to lose the fear to speak English. You must speak English if you want to succeed in refereeing. That's very simple. That opens door, because for the people who are afraid, you are the person who can communicate with who? With the rest of the world, because Europeans, Asians, they speak English. Okay, so thanks to both of you for this opportunity. Thanks also to all of you, and I personally congratulate you, because as a young officials, you are giving the opportunity to younger, newer officials to develop in this business. The doors are open. It's up to each one of us to work hard to be a better referee. Does that mean that you will get to the Premier League in your country? Not necessarily. That means that you will be sometimes a FIBA referee? Not necessarily. But if the opportunity comes, you're ready. You're ready. If you want to be ready when the opportunity comes, you're late. And when you show that the opportunity was given incorrectly in this business, they go to the next person. And if the next person is not ready, they go to the next person. And that's the way it is. Young officials at this time, 2021, that's what they are looking. That's what they want, but they want the experience also. These are great sections. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, see you next Thursday. Omar,
Thank you, Jose.
something last. We're good.
I'm good.
See you next Thursdays. Bye bye.